You're listening to Passing Time, a Detroit Lions podcast. We're one pride and all grit, with a passion for Detroit Lions football. Whether you're between meetings, between classes, sitting in traffic, or just relaxing at home, if you have time to pass, pass it with Passing Time. Detroit Lions Talk. Welcome back. This is Passing Time, a Detroit Lions podcast. I'm Brian, and we appreciate you passing time with us. We're trying to get on the algorithm, so I'm going to say it right away. I'm going to start off with this podcast talking about making sure you click all the things. Share, like, follow, all the things. Check us out on all the socials. We're on anywhere you can find your podcast. We appreciate you helping us out. We appreciate you psychopaths that love the Lions as much as we do. Thank you for all you do, and this is kind of why we do it. We appreciate the feedback that you give us, and we love to interact. So keep it rolling. Lots to talk about, even though it's the offseason. We can look at Drew Petzing and his interview on the POD podcast and what our reactions are a little bit to that. Maxx Crosby again. Is he going to be a Lion? Is he going to demand too much? Or the Raiders going to demand too much? Alex Anzalone, his tweets. Rod Wood retiring, and the Chicago Bears moving out of Chicago and moving out of Illinois. So what does that all look like? So in addition to that, I also want to dive deep into some free agency talk and see what might fit the Lions as we get ready and get rolling into next week. Next week is the combine, and we start really diving into more of those draft prospects. So wanted to look at some of these other things before we get into the draft. So Drew Petzing came on the POD podcast. Loved it. I would say that Drew Petzing is way more of a likable listen, a likable follow than John Morton was, and really appreciated him even getting into some of his schemes and thoughts. I thought the guys on the POD podcast did a very good job, and would love to have had more time with him and heard more. But the reality is I think him and Mike Kafka, who looks like he might be sticking around, really are gonna bring good things to the Detroit Lions. I really appreciated Drew talking about not necessarily diving into what his scheme was, but fitting his scheme to the personnel. If we don't have 13 personnel, we are not going to run 13 personnel. So that ultimately made sense. He sounded excited about having two premier backs. He sounded excited about having Jared Goff. And I feel like the weapons that we are going to have on offense are going to fit the style that he has. He wants to bring back this rough and tumble, pound it type run game, and that's what we as Lions fans really wanted, right? And that's what we think we were missing too this past season. We were not able to have consistency in that run game, whether that was David Montgomery or Jahmyr Gibbs, or whether we want to blame the O-line or the play calling. We need to find our identity again and bring that back. So I think that Drew talked about all of these little aspects and details of what we want the offense to be, but it's going to take some time to really hash out who we have and what we can do, and whether it's going to be a zone scheme or a gap scheme or pin and pull or what have you. It's going to fit our guys, and I can like that. I can really appreciate that. So good job. Kudos to Drew. He's making a fan out of me a little bit more, and we'll see. We'll continue to see what he has to offer. And we probably will hear a little bit more of him in Indianapolis when he's able to talk to some of the Lions beat writers, and we'll probably be able to dissect that even further. So next little topic is Maxx Crosby. We've been talking about it the last couple of weeks. We would love Maxx Crosby to be coming over here to Detroit, but the Raiders are they're going to ask a lot. They're going to ask for 2 first rounds and a premier player, something very similar to what Micah demanded. And the only difference is Mike is a 26-year-old and Max is a 28, moving on 29-year-old. And there's a difference there. We do we want to give up Micah Parsons type of capital and assets in order to bring in Maxx Crosby, I would love to. I think that Maxx Crosby would hide a ton of our holes, and we're going to get into our holes today when we dive into the free agencies. And I think Maxx Crosby being opposite edge of Hutchinson allows us to cover shorter. It allows our linebackers to be a little bit more free. It allows the D tackles to get some more pressures up the middle because when you have two premier edges, who are you going to double team? You got to pick your poisons at this point, right? So I'm still a fan of bringing Maxx in, whether it's Maxx or a different free agent, and we'll dive into that here shortly. But Maxx would be top of my list. Now, would I be willing to give up those two firsts and a premier player? That's the question. And I think I said last time, yeah. I'm leaning towards yeah, and I think I'm going to stick to that. Yeah. The tricky thing is, who is that? Yeah. It would have to be somebody with a contract already, somebody like a JMO, maybe an Aleem. I'd be interested in possibly sending those guys over to try to offset some of those contract issues with Maxx. But I wouldn't be as excited to send to maybe a Jack Campbell who still on that rookie contract, all pro, one of those guys that's going to be really a pillar to the Detroit Lions. So that's kind of where I'm sitting on that. Maxx Crosby, Raiders demanding 2 first-rounders and a premier player to maybe send him off, even though they're saying that they still want to keep him around. So the next thing on the topics here, and the next thing I want to talk about is the Alex Anzalone tweets. I'm sure you've heard about these things all over the place. Alex kind of diving into our social media crew in the Detroit Lions. Can I ask you though, like, who really cares? Like, he's tweeting out, is this a real thing? Are we going to dissect this? Well, I mean, it's the offseason, so we have topics we want to talk about. So, yes, Alex Anzalone is upset that his past breakups were not part of the Valentine's Day breakup video. And so he had a career-high 9 PDs this year. He complained that not one of them made that video. And he also said something to the effect of some other free agents made it, like, maybe a Meek. But who cares? I mean, he seems like a sensitive guy. He seems like he's proud of himself, and he wants the accolades to be passed around, but they weren't this time. So he then deleted those tweets. He responded back to, I've always had beef with our social media people, our social media team people. Is he trying to walk it back a little bit? Maybe. But the reality is it's Twitter or X. And I'm not going to lie, it doesn't bother me at all whether he wants to jump on there and make a fool of himself, or if he wants to jump on there and try to promote his brand. More power to him. He has that ability, and I'm not going to think twice about it. So next topic, Rod Wood is stepping down, going to retire before the 2026 season. Who is going to fill that role? There's some guys in house that we can look at, and I think would fill that role pretty well. Or we can look outside of the 222 Rodwood Lane, or the Lions, looking outside of who they've had around for a long time, trying to get different perspectives. So we'll see what they plan to do with that. But Rod seems to have done a pretty good job of keeping his nose clear of the football decisions and keeping him more into the financials and the marketing, and trying to make the Ford Field's the most premier place they can be, even though it's about 30 years old. So no, I think he did a good job, and we're gonna miss him. So thanks, Rod. Final quick hitters here is Bears are looking like they are coming to terms with Indiana and creating a new top of the line stadium outside of Chicago, outside of Illinois, and they're kind of calling it Chicagoland. So is this a Pontiac Silverdome? Is this a Palace of Auburn Hills? Is this an outside of the the metro area of Chicago? Yeah. But what weirds me out a little bit is it's outside of the state. So how do you feel if you're a Chicago Bears fan right now, and your team is going to be the Indiana Bears? I will be very interested to see the uproar and the followings and the statements that we see moving forward. So, um, next segment. All right, I'm gonna jump right into it. I'm kind of rolling here. I'm trying to move on. It's a little bit different for me. I've not done the solo pod very often, but we're gonna get into free agency and what that might look like for the Detroit Lions. Free agency opens up on March 11th. The tampering period, which basically is free agency as well, is opening up on the 9th. So we're going to start to see some of the moves that the Detroit Lions are going to make to fill those holes. And to give Brad Holmes some credit, he typically fills the holes with free agents before the draft so that he can take the best player available when it comes to draft day. Now, I mean, we also see that he takes needs during that draft period as well. But what are some of the needs that the Detroit Lions have? Well, the first need is some cap space. The Detroit Lions cap right now is rough. I think we're in the negative $9 million right now. But I foresee some restructuring of some contracts. Goff probably being one of the top guys to push down the road a little bit. So the big question now lies is, do we want to be able to buy now, even though it might impact our future, or do we want to just stick pat and not have not be able to fill the holes that we want to fill, or make the big splashes that we want to make? Because there's some guys out there that would really help this team, and ultimately we're going to need some guys to help our team. We have some space, we have some holes, we have some gaps, and if you watch the 2025 season, where those gaps might be. So Goff's contract, I wouldn't be surprised if we see that being restructured here in the next week or two, in order to free up some space. The next thing that we could do is cut some guys. Are we gonna see guys like Graham Glasgow get cut, which could free up some space? We could see Taylor Decker. What are we going to see with him? He's ultimately got to make a decision whether he is going to be a Detroit Lion for this upcoming season in 2026, or if he's going to retire. And in my personal opinion, he is either going to play or he is going to retire. I don't foresee the Lions cutting Taylor Decker. In an ideal world, we can restructure a little bit his contract as well. But in the twilight of his career, I would only assume that he is going to want to hang on to all the dollars he can get, moving forward here. So other guys like Aleem or Amon-Ra or Panay, big contracts that we could again push down the road a little bit, and free up some space. So the cap gymnastics are going to start, and let's see what kind of see what kind of capital we can start to play with. So where are our needs? The Detroit Lions have some big roster holes, and we all have talked about this in excess. The O-line may be the top stresses of our needs. And where's that going to look like? We had in this past year one of the top offensive tackles and Penei Sewell at right tackle. Is he going to continue to play right tackle, or is he going to move to left tackle? I think that he is a flexible player that could play both. Right now, I think he's the best right tackle in all of the NFL. moving him to the left tackle. He could possibly be the best left tackle in all of the NFL. And that does give us some flexibility depending on whether we want to attack that other tackle position in free agency, if Taylor Decker sticks around, or if we decide to draft someone. So that's what that allows us to do with Penei Sewell. He is not one of our needs, though tackle is. Whether Taylor Decker sticks around or not, we need a tackle of the future. I don't see Manu being that guy. He might be a possible Dan Skipper replacement. Not necessarily on the coaching staff, but as that sixth offensive lineman, I can see him moving into that role. I can see him possibly being that next guy in. I just don't want to rely on him to play significant snaps. The next need. Okay, so we talked briefly about tackle being a need. Guard at that right side, Tate Ratledge. I think he's held that down pretty well as a rookie and moving into year 2. The only question is that going to be his spot, or is the Lions coaching staff looking at him at center? And ultimately, center is one of those big needs right now. So these shifting of places and positions is going to have a big impact on how we approach free agency. It's going to be a big impact on how we approach the draft. And I guess that's going to be a big impact on how we roll into training camp. So left guard, we had Christian Mahogany, we had Coyote Ayoshika, we had Miles Frazier, we had Tristan Colon. We had all these guys at left guard that kind of played this revolving door. Christian kind of getting banged up and having broken bones and such that did impact us as we went through the season. But I truthfully believe that we need more competition at that position because I don't think Christian Mahogany has earned just rolling into camp and having a starting role. So he needs to be pushed. I'm not saying that he can't earn it. I'm not saying that he can't have that position in 2026, but he's got to earn that position. It can't just be given. And then our left tackle, we have Taylor Decker there now, and what does his future look like? I'm hoping he makes a decision in the next week or two, maybe definitely before the draft. So it gives us the best opportunity in free agency, as it gives us the best opportunity in the draft to make a solid decision. And I think they gave him kind of that deadline. Hey, don't want to rush you, but hey, don't screw us over here either. And then that final offensive line position that I kind of skipped over, but really want to focus on and really want to dive into first is center. I believe Graham Glasgow has played his last snap as starting center. I think that we need a veteran center, and I think free agency is going to be the place that we fill that. What that might look like, not sure. I mean, Tyler Linderbaum has been a name that has been thrown about so often, but I'm pretty sure 32 teams want that guy on their team. He's a 25-year-old. He is coming off a really solid rookie contract and a really solid year, but he's also going to demand somewhere in the 17 to 20 million a year for a center. And I don't think the Lions are willing to pay something along that line. Not only that, but right now in the cap space situation, we don't have the money to pay that right now. So we're going to have to look at maybe a tier down or maybe even 2 tiers down. So Connor McGovern from the Bills, 28, projected to get around 16 million, had a pretty solid 2025 season. It seems like, to me, a pretty good fit. And if not him, maybe a Cade Mays from the Panthers, 26 years old, not necessarily as much of a stud as Tyler Linderbaum or even Connor McGovern, but still going to demand around 10 to 12 million projected. And he ranked out a 20 or 62.4 PFF grade this past season. But at least he has some experience. He's not going into this as a rookie. He's never, like, if we ask Tate Ratledge, who's who's never played center before, it's going to be some learning, some tough games, some learning pains. It's just going to be rough, and I don't want to rely on Tate moving positions in year two. As much as I know that Frank did that, and that's kind of it was his trajectory. I don't see Tate as the same kind of player as Frank was. So I just don't. Like, do I think he could be a mauler? Do I think he's going to have some really good football ahead of him? Absolutely. Do I think that good football is at the center position? I don't. So it's kind of where I'm leaning right now. I'd love to see a Connor McGovern being in a Lions jersey. I think that fits our need. Other options, Dolphins, Liam Eckenberg, 28, probably a more value pick or a tier 2, maybe even tier 3 type free agent that could fit a spot. Austin Schlottman, who was a former Giant, might have some Kafka ties, and at the age of 31, again, not looking for a huge payday, could come in and fill a decent veteran role for a year or two. So that's possible. Ethan Posick from the Browns, a little bit of a Petzing tie, possibly a little bit more expensive, like a $6 million projection, could come in. Age 30, has as a veteran and knows the role, knows the Petzing needs and styles, and he could fit that role pretty well as well. And then, I mean, there's trade possibilities, but I don't foresee us giving up too much for trade in that center role. Maybe Halati Fahota from the Cardinals, age 29. But why would the Cardinals give up something like that? I'm guessing they're going to bring in a new quarterback, and they need somebody to protect him. So either we are bringing in one of those free agents, those center free agents, or we're going to look at the draft. And I can't see us drafting a center and relying on him in year one. It would be more likely to see Tate move over to center. And that's why I think that this solidifying the center role is going to make the rest of the offensive line a little bit. We'll understand a little bit more moving forward what we need to do in the draft if we can get a solid veteran center. And I'm going to say that that's my number one priority, going into this offseason. So looking also at tackle, I guess that would be the next one to look at, our next offensive lineman to look at, and it's going to be determined on whether Taylor Decker comes back at the age of 32 or is he going to retire. We all know that he left this past season not in a good headspace, and he had to really determine whether this is going to be something that he wants to put himself through, put his family through again, or if this is something that he's ready to hang up the cleats and to move on and spend more time with his family and his kids and give them more than what he had to offer this year. So that's going to be an interesting. It's going to be an interesting decision on him and how that impacts the Lions. Lions would add about $11.6 million to their cap space if Decker retires. He's demanding a lot of money right now for, I would say, an average left tackle. But at the same time, if he moves on, we can do a lot worse. That's the thing. I mean, we're either going to pay more than we're asking Taylor for maybe a step up or even a step lateral. So if Decker stays, I believe that's a good thing. It gives us a buffer year as we draft a offensive tackle. Have Hank Fraley really work with him in order to transition. And if Taylor gets banged up throughout the season, hopefully we have a guy there to fill in that space. I do believe that we need to draft an offensive tackle this year, whether that's round 1 or round 2. I'm expecting to see a tackle drafted. Other options, free agent options, other than Taylor Decker. Rasheed Walker from the Packers, 26 years old. I'm assuming they're going to re-sign him. He's going to demand some money, though. He's going to demand 21 million. Had a decent season, and still 26 years old. He's still young. So Braden Smith, right tackle for the Colts. This would mean that more than likely Panay would move over to left. Braden would come in at right as a 30-year-old, demanding still about 13.5 million per year, whether that's a 3 or less years that we're asking him to come, in that contract. But another option there in free agency, Jonah Williams, left tackle for the Cardinals. Again, that Petzing tie. He's 28, so pretty young. Maybe demanding 8 to 10 million, and it might be a good fit. So what I'm going to continue to say, some of these Kafka ties, some of these Petzing ties, I might even throw in a couple Dan Campbell ties from years ago, and what that might look like. So Cam Robinson from the Browns, Jack Conklin, who has a Petzing tie, was there in 2020 and 2020 through 2022 when Petzing was running around in Cleveland. But Jack Conklin is 32 years old, but might be a good fit here too. Who I might be even more interested at the age of 32 is Jermaine Illuminor. Illuminor is left tackle for the Giants, coming off a decent year. And again, now we're looking at a Kafka tie. So we got lots of names. I'm going to continue to roll through some of these guys and say, hey, these guys might fit the Detroit Lions the best. And then I might also add on a Coyote Awashika or Jamarco Jones who've already been a part of the Detroit Lions. But we have to rely on them for depth more than we're going to have to ask them to pull a starting role. So guard, I don't know if we bring a guard in. This is all dependent on what we expect Tate to do. I do think bringing in a veteran guard would be great to push guys like Christian Mahogany, to push guys like Miles Frazier. Can we see growth from those guys? But I also don't want to pay for those guys. And I'm saying all of this with the understanding that Graham Glasgow is still under contract. So Graham is technically going to be around unless we cut and we save ourselves a few dollars by bidding him farewell, thanking him for his service, and moving on. So I'm not going to dive too deep into the guard realm. Guys like Kevin Zeitler, who were a former Lion, love to see him come back. He's going to demand about $9 million. I don't know if it's in our pocketbooks in order to bring someone like that back. Will Hernandez, I love the idea of Will Hernandez, age 31 from the Cardinals. Petzing tie again. He might only demand about 2.1 million, and again, maybe that veteran piece that pushes the Mahoganies and the Fraziers in order to grow. So I would like to see that. Next level, ready? Tight ends. This gets interesting because we talk a lot about the 13 personnel that Petzing wants to bring. We talk a lot about 12 personnel, and not only that, but you have Sam Laporta, who's coming off an injury. You got Zylstra, who did not have his best year, coming off an injury as well. You got Fisker, who we brought in this year that didn't play all that well. So we're going to need someone, whether that comes from the draft or that comes from free agency. A couple guys that kind of like piqued my interest. David Njoku, you've seen thrown around his name a lot, but he is going to be fairly expensive at the age of 29. Daniel Bellinger from the Giants, younger guy, Kafka tie, more of this blocking tight end, might be cheaper, might be able to come in and fill a Brock Wright type role. So maybe something that fits what the Lions want to do in the run game a little bit better. Noah Fant is a Bengal 29. He might be in our price range as well. But other than that, there's other guys like Taysom Hill and Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz, all free agents that are out there, but I don't think you're going to see as in a Lions uniform. So, um, starting to wrap up some of the offense, our guys in the QB position. I only foresee us bringing back Kyle Allen. I think he's 29, moving on 30. He's not going to demand a ton of money. He's a veteran, and if Jared Goff gets hurt, we're in rough shape regardless. So I think he fills that role pretty well. I don't foresee us drafting a developmental quarterback this year. Maybe when that quarterback class gets a little bit better, maybe then, but not this year. Wide receiver, maybe bring back Tom Kennedy, maybe bring back Khalif Raymond. Wan'Dale Robinson might be somebody that we look at, but I think his price tag might be a little bit too high. From the Giants, Kafka ties again. But ultimately, I don't think we're going to dive too deep into the wide receiver room and what that might look like. Now, the final piece in the running back room final piece in the offense would be the running back room. And this is probably going to be what it is. And this is all based on if David Montgomery comes back. I believe that after hearing some of his talks at Radio Row during the Super Bowl, he seems like he's back. He seems like he's back to where we want him to be. He's talked to Drew Petzing. They've massaged his ego to the extent that he is going to be a part of this offense. And I think that, again, we want him to be part of this offense. We want him to be back, happy, and excited. So that's a good thing. I don't think that we're going to see a Breece Hall or a Kenneth Walker or Javonte Williams or a Nick Chubb coming to Detroit. I don't foresee that. So I think we like our room. And if anything, we might see a Bam come back from the Arizona to the Detroit Lions, but that's about it. We're rolling in here as this goes on, and I'm throwing out lots of names. I hope that you're excited about all these free agents opportunities, what we kind of put into this, and I'm going to continue. So I'm going to jump into some of the defensive pieces. And talk a little bit more about edge. And these are all edge guys that are not named Maxx Crosby, but how they might fit into a Lions uniform. So like guys like, Trey Hendrickson. What we don't have to do with Trey Hendrickson is give up assets. We do have to give up money, and that could we could he could outprice the Lions, but the reality is it could happen. That to me, Trey Hendrickson's more realistic to become a Lion than a Maxx Crosby, but he has come with a price tag, $29+ million a year, and he's going to want several years. So I'm not holding my breath that Trey's coming. I'm not holding my breath that Khalil's coming or Hassan Reddick's coming. I'm not even holding my breath that Joey Bosa's coming. I don't see those guys wearing Lions uniforms. I think that we want to get younger. We want guys that fit our scheme. I even see us drafting a guy in that first or second round, and that's kind of how we fit that hole in our defense. Of anybody, I do foresee maybe Bradley Chubb from the Dolphins, 29, looking at possibly 14 million a year. Probably a similar price tag as a Muhammad, and a couple years younger. Now the thing is with Bradley Chubb, he has dealt with some injuries in his past, but that to me sounds like right up Brad Holmes' alley. So who knows what he has up his sleeve. So what I do know is that we need something. We need something across from Hutch. We need something to take the pressure off. And not only that, but when we have that front four getting pressure, it's going to impact how we cover. It's going to impact how we tackle. It's going to impact the linebackers, whether we run a 4-3 or a 4-2. It's going to allow us to run nickel. is just going to help the entire scheme. Now, this is reliant on Kelvin Shepherd making the call, allowing us not to just crush the can, now allowing us to pin our ears back and to get some pressure on that quarterback, and to change the way we do some things. But I think that that's going to be a need moving forward. The edge position is going to be a need, and a pretty significant need. So, in my opinion, right now, it's going to be center, it's going to be offensive tackle, it's going to be edge. Those are our top three needs right now, and what order you get them in, it's going to make a difference. But they're all right there at the top and very close to each other in my book. We still have Muhammad as one of our free agents that I'm seeing that we're going to say goodbye to Muhammad. I'm going to say that he's going to demand a little bit too much for a guy that had a breakout season. I don't see us bringing back a Marcus Davenport. I think that we tried it a couple years and just didn't do it for us. But I do see us bringing back a guy like Tyrus Sweet, who played sparingly, but played a pretty good role. So I as a depth piece, I think that fits us pretty well. So D tackles, I do see with Roy Lopez as somebody that we could bring back. Roy Lopez was a guy, 28. He's not going to break the bank. He's going to be a backup type nose tackle to Tyleik Williams, who I think is going to take a big step. I think Aleem McNeil also is going to be a guy that is going to get healthier, is going to get better, and we're going to see a better Aleem this season than we did in 2025. So maybe that's hopium, but that is what I foresee is that he's going to be able to train this offseason like he wants to train. He's not going to just be rehabbing. He's going to get ready for the season. So those are good things. I do foresee DJ Reader, riding into the sunset onto to greener pastures. And I don't foresee us bringing in DJ Reader for this season. I think he's played his last game as a Detroit Lion, and I appreciate all he's done. But it's time to move on. It's time to give Tyleik some more reps, and I think that he is ready to take on that role. So other pieces like Levi, who we have now under an interesting tolling contract, who even because he did not play one snap in preseason or training camp or during the season, we can bring on, as well as Josh Pascal. So those are also going to be pieces along that D tackle that line that are going to fill some depth. So I don't foresee us jumping too deep into the D tackle free agency market. Maybe a day 3 guy in the draft, but it's gonna be probably a Roy Lopez and what we have. So linebackers, this is where things get interesting because Alex Anzalone is a guy that I know we play better as a defense with Alex Anzalone on the field. But we also expect or demand Alex Anzalone to do some things that other linebackers can't. So we either need another guy like Alex Anzalone, or we need to change up our scheme. We need to bring on, like I've talked about before, some nickel. We need to bring on a slot that can cover tight ends or backs. And those are the big question marks. What is Kelvin going to do? Is he going to rely on our 4-3 defense where we have base and linebackers on the field, or is he going to take one of those guys off and bring in more of a larger defensive back? No, this is going to be hopefully contingent on our personnel. I hope that he's reliant, is able to make some adjustments based on who we have. But I'm very interested to see what the priority is there. Alex Anzalone is a guy that's going to demand to get paid. This is going to be one of his last paydays, 32 years old. I'm guessing in the $6 million-ish a year range, and I would assume that he's going to want more than just one of those years. So we'll see. Somebody that might be a comparable, cover linebacker that could come in is again, 32-year-old Bills linebacker Matt Milano. Probably going to demand very similar money, but depending on who could give us a better deal, could be a fill. But I'm guessing the Lions want to go a little bit younger. They want to go a little bit fresher. They want to go get a little bit faster. But does that mean that they're going to have to be a little more expensive? So I don't know exactly what their plan there. And so we'll see. Justin Stannard from the Broncos, 30 years old. More of a specials team guy, but maybe given an opportunity, could be that cheap, rangy, a little bit bigger than Malcolm Rodriguez that could fill that role. But then you also ask yourself, are we going to bring back Malcolm Rodriguez? Because he's a free agent as well at the age of 27. And not going to break the bank, but again, coming off an injury and been primarily a special teams guy. So other linebackers that we have in free agency are Grant Stewart, Zach Cunningham, Zeke Turner, Trevor Nowaski. I mean, our room is going to be pretty bare other than Derek Barnes and Jack Campbell. And we're going to have to pay Jack here pretty soon too. So that's going to be an interesting to look. A couple names there for you to just chew on. What about safeties? You look at, we are in an interesting spot with our safety room. You look at, is Kirby Joseph coming back, and will he be the guy that we once saw? How soon will Brian Branch be back from his Achilles injury? And what does that room look like without those guys? The cupboard's bare right now. We need something. And is that going to be bringing back Avonte Maddox and asking him to play there? Is he going to be bringing back Daniel Thomas and asking him to play there? Are we going to be able to see maybe some new blood? Jalen Thomas from the Cardinals, 28, Petzing tie, going to demand some money. Andrew Sisko from the Jets, 26, going to demand some money. He's a kind of a high upside guy. Or do we bring back some of the true blue Miles Kilbrew, somebody that has been a Lion before, played with the Steelers this past year and at the age of 33. Could be a cheaper option, So what are we looking at doing here? Do you make a trade? Are you looking at it in the draft? How high in the draft are you looking at? Knowing that we don't have a third round pick right now. So those are all, again, question marks as we dive into that free agency market. So corner. Is corner a need? I'd be very interested to see what the thoughts are, with Amik Robertson. The thoughts are with what we are expecting from Terrion Arnold. What are we expecting from Ennis Rakestraw? We have to rely on Terrion Arnold to be one of those guys. We're going to have to rely on DJ Reed to be one of those guys. Do you bring back Avonte Maddox to play corner, being a versatile corner / safety? Rocky Sin, Arthur Mallett, Jalen Mills, some of those guys that we had on our roster this year that hopefully can give us some depth. But, we still have some guys that we are going to need to see. Ennis Rakestraw, is he a real person? Does he play football? I need him to put in some quality reps and take some of that pressure off. Terrion Arnold, I do believe that we're better with him on the field. And DJ Reed, I think he came back this past year too early off of his hamstring injury. I think he's a better player than what he showed. So all of those things saying, that's a lot of names for a lot of holes, and the Lions have some work to do. What is it going to look like? I think things are going to start sifting out. I think we're going to start to see that ball rolling downhill. Contracts are going to be restructured. We're going to start signing our guys. We're going to start looking into who that, those free agency are that might come fill those roles come March 9th, 10th, 11th, and then so on after. And needless to say, that's without saying that we still have special teams like Jake Bates that we're going to look at, and what does he come back? I mean, he's a restricted free agent, so if he doesn't sign with us, he's got to sit out a year. So lots of question marks with the Detroit Lions. Lots of concerns. Are we? We talk about windows, and I do believe our window's open. It's huge. It's right there. We have lots of talent, but we gotta do some gymnastics in order to make this thing work. And I would love to see it work, and I would love to see us push the envelope a little bit, make some decisions to do more, whether that means edge, whether that means center, whether that means offensive tackle. Do some more in order to solidify those positions to get us back on track. You saw Vegas pick the Detroit Lions to win 10.5 games. That's as much as you can get right now. I mean, that's as high as any other team. So the expectation's up there, and I expect it from them as well. So, almost wrapping up here. I've gone long. Some Michigan sports info. Tigers in spring training. Pistons just won 126 to 111 over the Knicks. This is without Duren and without Stewart. So let's go Stones. Amazing showing by them. U of M just beat Purdue a couple days ago, ranked number 1. Big game on Saturday at 6:30 against Duke. Number 1 Michigan versus number 3 Duke. Love to see that game. So who do you got for that? MSU basketball. If you're an MSU fan, beating UCLA pretty handily. Good work. You guys got OSU on Sunday at 1. The Wings will get rolling again here shortly after the Olympic break. But if you're enjoying the Olympics like I, whether it's curling or hockey, both men and women just won the gold today against Canada in OT. That was huge. Men are playing Slovakia tomorrow at 3:10 in the semis. So let's go. Let's go USA. Let's go red, white, and blue. Right now, the U.S. have 27 medals, 9 gold. Second to Norway with 34 medals, 16 gold. Just above Italy with 26 medals and 9 gold. It's fun to follow, So, and I know we're kind of starving for some football, but I mean, I turn on some Pistons or some Olympics, and it's filling the void a little bit. So, hey, appreciate you to making it this far in this pod by myself. Appreciate you guys. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Appreciate you all. Thank you so much. I'm Brian, and this is Passing Time, a Detroit Lions podcast. See you guys.